Alright, hello. So as last month in our Creating Meals Mastercourse episode, we talked about the idea of putting on a feast, and we started talking a little bit about the idea of courses. I wanted to delve more into that today, because did you know that you can actually go up to 12 courses in a meal? Yeah. If you're going like extremely hard, you might see those 12-course meals where there's like the hors d'oeuvre, the amuse-bouche, then the, soup, salad, the fish, the first course, palate cleanser, second course, dessert, like mini dessert. That's actually 10. I can't even remember the other 2 off the top of my head right now. But you can actually get so deep into the amount of courses you give that like any dinner party you want to do can go on for quite a while. But obviously, even for people who really love to party and love to host elaborate dinner parties and things like that, 12, 10 courses is still pretty excessive. So let's talk about 5-course meals, which at any point you can easily turn into a 3-course by just deleting a couple things out of it. No problem. So when you go to a restaurant, obviously the first thing you'll see is the appetizer menu, then the courses, and then maybe afterwards a dessert menu. That is a standard 3-course meal. You've got your appetizer, main course, and dessert. But if you add soup and salad, now you've actually got 5 courses. If you add like a little snack before then, 6 courses. And again, you can remove 3 of those courses at any time and still have a totally functional meal. But let's just go with 5 courses for a second. Let's talk about what it means to kind of put that together in context of a meal. In my opinion, when you start thinking of not just one dish, but several courses, it's almost like writing a story, in that you can kind of connect each dish in like a thematic way, depending on what kind of ingredients you use, what time of year it is, the presentation, anything like that. The 5-course meal is fun because you kind of see that it can easily be anywhere between 3 and 5. If you don't want soup or salad, it's a 3-course meal. If you want to give the option of soup or salad, like you see a lot of weddings or restaurants do, that's a 4-course meal. If you want to give both soup and salad, as well as an appetizer, main course, and dessert, 5. And honestly, that's probably like, depending on the size of the party, the max I would go, just because salad isn't that difficult to put together, and soups in terms of a course meal like this aren't like super complicated. So for example, borscht, if you make it on its own, it's very hearty. It's full of all these different kinds of vegetables, and it's kind of a thick, chunky soup. But when you serve it, say, for Christmas Eve, like we just had recently, where it's a part of like the first course of a Ukrainian dinner for Christmas Eve, it's actually clear. There's no vegetables in it. It's just the broth with like maybe a couple ushka and some like cracked black pepper. It's a completely different feel and a completely different purpose, but it is the same general style of soup. So we're actually going to look at what she has here as a full moon feast. The writer Melissa here has a full moon feast listed as a 3-course meal with mushroom and parsnip soup, gnocchi with sage blossom pesto, and black sesame cake. And in terms of a full moon feast, this book is actually really cool because it gives you some ideas of what to do. So like you cook it and then you can set some of the meal aside as an offering, and depending on what deities you work with that have to do with the moon, maybe set them out for that. For instance, this book actually has the Homeric hymn to Selene, the goddess of the moon, in it, which is really interesting. But in general, you make these things for the night of the full moon and maybe invite any other witchy or spiritual friends to partake with you in this kind of spiritual feast of sorts. And if you're not into that specific meal, she does give you ideas like, full moon foods are like eating pale, white, or silver foods: honeydew, cabbage, fennel fish, white beans, lotus root, yogurt, eggs, sage, pine nuts, coconut, banana, tofu. Anything that reminds you of the brightness of the moon, you can use. And that's what I mean when I say telling a story and using these kinds of thematic ideas, right? So when you are creating a 3 to 5-course meal, you're thinking of food themes that unite the whole meal into something that makes sense. So for instance, coconut and banana, and eggs and yogurt, you could probably kind of figure out some dessert to make out of these things. And then fish, right? Pale, white, or silver foods. There's a lot of white fish that you could eat that would also kind of give a similar idea. Or you could maybe use the pine nuts in a salad, lotus root and beans in a salad, eggs in a salad even. You can use these different things that are associated with this time to create a several course meal that then has a through line that represents what you're trying to convey magically. So just like how we talked about, the proteins and the carbs and the vegetables of an actual standard plate of a meal, likewise, these courses make you think about what you want your guests to experience as they're eating. When you start them off with, like, say, an hors d'oeuvre or an appetizer, what's the note that you want to hit first? And again, for appetizers as the first course, they're not supposed to be too big because that's just supposed to be, an appetizer, getting their appetite up. The main course is where the majority of the meal comes in, and then you have that sweet finish in the dessert. You can absolutely make it a 5-course and you accompany it with a salad or a soup, but either way, 3 courses is the standard meal for most people. I wouldn't recommend going wild with 12 courses, but if you're up for it, you certainly could. But nonetheless, when you are thinking of magic, it is important to think about the occasion that you're hosting this dinner party or something on. It's important to think about, the things associated with this time. So if it's the full moon, right, you're thinking of all those specific foods. If it's the new moon, you're thinking of different things. And you're also thinking of the magical function of this time. So again, the full moon and the new moon have different things to represent them and also have different functions magically. Whereas according to this book, the new moon is all about blessing new projects, protection, refreshing altars, and so forth. The full moon is about casting spells, cleansing, consecration, dream work, love magic, and all these other kinds of things. So knowing that, and knowing all the different herbs and spices we've talked about, all the different meals made magic that you've seen, and the ingredients I use in them, you can very easily start crafting an entire meal plan based around a certain few key ingredients. So for instance, if you're taking lemon and vanilla in a dessert, that is that kind of purifying love magic that might be good for the full moon. Carry that through the rest of your meal. Maybe you're making a cream lemon sauce for chicken, and maybe you're having a kind of salad that you are using a lemon-based dressing on. You may also include things like apples in the salad that once again fortify that idea of love. And in the main dish, the cream sauce, right? You have butter and things like that that make things go smoother and easier, that unite it in that whole theme as well. So when you think about the key ingredients throughout all of the meals, you'll be able to actually create a multi-part spell through your actual courses themselves. That's why as we're creating meals, it's not just about that one course and that one plate, which obviously you can make, one pot meals or several part meals, but it's also about the procession of the food. So you got your appetizer, main course, and dessert. This is now starting to think about that segmented meal idea of those 3 parts of a plate across several different meal ideas. And obviously, again, you wouldn't necessarily do this for like the average weeknight at home, of course, but rather it makes sense to do this if you're hosting a dinner party, if you're having friends over, if there's a holiday. It's at this point that you start thinking about what you want out of the whole experience. So if we think about my Christmas Day dinner, it was very simply, spaghetti and meatballs and then pizza. That wasn't even 3 courses, it was 2 because we didn't have any salad for the appetizer. Oh well. But you've got that quality of love in the tomato of the spaghetti sauce, right? And you've got like all those kinds of spices in there. And then you also have that quality of love with the vanilla and sugar in the pizza itself. Even though they're very different ingredients, their magical qualities do unite into the same idea, which is bringing that kind of love and fun and protection on the night of Christmas Day. And I really do insist on thinking about it like a story, like I was saying before, because the last thing you want is to start uniting a bunch of flavors and textures and ideas that don't have anything to do with each other. So, if you're having something creamy in one spot, I wouldn't recommend pairing it with something spicy and like vinegary the next. That's kind of strange. It's one thing to have like maybe something pickled, right? Like peppers or something to go along with something rich and heavy. But if you have a very creamy, mild, and lightly savory appetizer, and then you kind of hit them with something that's very bold and full of spice and other flavors for the main course, these are conflicting ideas, and now you're kind of confusing the energy you're trying to build with the overall, dinner menu of the night. But now that we've introduced that topic, we do have earlier episodes on salad and other things like that, so I just wanted to introduce the idea of getting outside the bounds of your one plate and thinking about the entire spread of a meal. So with that, I hope this kind of helps frame how you might go about the next parties or the next feast that you have, how you might take any magical moment, such as a full moon, new moon, a certain, start of a new astrological sign, the new month or anything like that, and how you might plan your own significant feasts and meals around that. Because, even though we're all busy and things like that, it is always nice to celebrate any way we can. In this book, even if some of the meals in it they seem kind of like high maintenance, the ideas in it are still very valuable. The ideas in this book, to me, kind of give you that sense of every moment is a moment worth celebrating. And so with that in mind, I hope this helps you, get some ideas to plan those more special moments, however frequently you want to make them. And so with that, I'll see you guys around next week for a practical witch tip for your kitchen. See ya! By the way, if you want to see these videos 2 weeks earlier, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you not only get all these videos, but also recipe cards, specific deity profiles, and lots of other interesting things to look at. Video tiers start at $10 a month, so definitely consider checking it out.